We are very honored to have in attendance for the second straight year U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski at our conference. Senator Murkowski has been such an amazing supporter in the world of housing and homelessness with her work at a national level and represents Alaska well. A contingent of about 9 of us had an opportunity to meet with her staff in D.C. And with all of our federal delegation. I got to say, her office is the nicest out of all 3 of them. Is very clean and very amazing, very Alaska in the middle of D.C. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Senator Lisa Murkowski to the stage. Everybody.
Well, thank you. Good morning. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you here this morning. Brian, I appreciate your leadership with the coalition. And as I look around the room, lots of friends doing good things. And I'm going to begin my remarks in perhaps a somewhat unusual way. You mentioned that you've got board elections, and I'm thinking, oh man, you got your elections, I got mine that I'm focusing on. But I've actually had people say, good grief, Lisa, in the midst of just everything that is going on, why do you want to go back to the craziness? And I will tell you, it is because of people like you and the opportunity to work together to make a difference in the lives of individuals and their families here in this state. And that's what you're doing. And it's so encouraging, it's so uplifting. As I was listening to Mandy, as I was listening to Sam, I'm thinking, here are people who just get up every day and out of love, so many of them, just out of love, are working to make a difference in places where things are so challenging, they're so tough, they're so expensive, it's so hard, and yet we get up every morning and we do it. And that, to me, is the most invigorating, inspirational part of what I get to do in my service to Alaskans, is to work with people who are making such a difference. And you really are working to make a difference, and that is important for you all to remember, because it is hard. It is just plain hard. You're the experts. You know what the statistics are. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that we're up, we're down. We know that we have extraordinary challenges with housing and with homelessness. And whether you are out in the most remote small village, or whether you're here in Anchorage, it is something that we are struggling with as we make day-to-day advances. As I've traveled around the state, it used to be that the biggest concern that I would hear from people was, this high cost of energy is just killing us in our communities. It's driving us out. It's causing us to move from the village to the regional hub to Anchorage. It's just not working for us. Now, as I'm traveling around the state, more and more and more in every community, urban and rural, it's housing. What are we going to do with housing? I was out in Scammon Bay, and I had an elder who would not let go of my sleeve until I promised to go with him into his home so he could show me the condition of the housing that he lived in. When I was out in Unalaska just a couple days ago, I was visiting with a family who had experienced a fire, and they lost their belongings. But it was not only the family of multiple kids and multiple generations, but in an effort to make sure that they had housing for their employees in their small business, they housed them as well. And in more and more of our communities, it is the overcrowding. It's not just the inability to find housing. It's what we're finding in the house, whether it is substandard conditions or whether it is just a level of uncrowding that we would all acknowledge is unsafe. What happens when you have people that are literally living on top of one another? It causes stress. We see instances of domestic violence. Our children are impacted because they don't have a place where they feel like they can study, or they are just living with so many that they can't focus on their education. When you don't have a house, how do you escape domestic violence if there's no place for you to go to within that community? If you don't have a house, how do you restart yourself? If you have been involved with some criminal activity, you're trying to get yourself off drugs, but you don't have housing, you don't have a place to go, you don't even have an address to put on a job application. And this is what you all are working on. This is what you're doing every day. And so just know how much I thank you for what you're doing. You were talking about partnerships when I came in, and you all are working with coalitions, with partnerships, with communities, with the state, and I come in at the federal side. My responsibility is to try to do what I can on the federal side of things to work to address some of the funding issues. And I know that there's a lot of us that would like to see Congress being more active, doing more when it comes to providing funding for agencies like HUD, like USDA. So I'm on the Senate Appropriations Committee, and we've been working aggressively to try to do more to fill up those accounts. It was here, I don't know if we were in this room, but it was at this conference when I heard very loudly, very clearly, that the home program works for us here, that this is important for us here. It wasn't necessarily a priority for some of my colleagues back in Washington, D.C., and we knew that. So making sure that you are connecting with me and telling me these are the programs that are working, this is what's making a difference. So we did work to try to advance funding for home. I had requested a pretty hefty increase, up to $1.2 billion for this year. We're sitting at a lower level right now in the House and Senate bill. It's sitting at $950 million. It's still a substantial sum. I still think that we need to do more, and that's something that we're going to work for. But I've also worked to request increases for programs that support our Alaska Native populations, including the Indian Community Development Fund, the Indian Housing Block Grants, and of course the Native HUD VASH program. We need to make sure that this demonstration program does succeed. We've got some time to go in negotiations before we conclude our appropriations bills. We'll be taking those up when we reconvene in November in a lame duck. But I've heard loud and clear that you all think that from the housing perspective and the programs that matter to us, it's the House bill that actually does more for you. We're clearly looking at that and again working to help facilitate the higher numbers. It's not just working through the appropriations process, though. It's also making sure that those who are in the agencies know and understand what you all are dealing with. So we had some high-level HUD representatives visiting the state, not just for them to come and look at the urban hubs, but to spend some time in rural Alaska so that they can see firsthand some of the conditions that we're dealing with, and also to see what great things you're doing from the innovation perspective. Because there are some good collaborative efforts out there that you should all be proud of. So many of you, I know, were involved with the visit of the Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public and Indian Housing. What a title. But But Lourdes Ramirez was here in the state. Many members of her staff came up. They were out in Bethel. They were in villages in the YK region. They were in AKCH2, in Fairbanks, here in Anchorage. They were out at Beans, at Brother Francis, Carlick Manor, Covenant House. They held a series of stakeholder meetings here in Anchorage, and I know that many of you participated. But know that you made an impact. Know that they are talking, still talking, and are impressed about the work that they saw ongoing here in Alaska. Because they mentioned to me, they mentioned to my staff, that almost nowhere else in the country did they see or have they seen the level of coordination and collaboration that they saw here in Alaska. And that's encouraging to me because I know that when push comes to shove, we're innovative, we're going to work together to solve the issues and the problems. But to have folks from the outside, to have the agencies take note of this and then comment and compliment us on that, I think that that's a tribute to you all. So since that trip, we've been following up with HUD on several issues, including the sunset of the U.S. Interagency Council on the Homeless. I know that this is a priority of yours. We had an opportunity to discuss that when you were back there in Washington, D.C. But this trip, I think, is just one of those small bridges that we put in place to help bridge the gap between the agencies and those of you, the boots on the ground, that are really making the difference. So we're going to keep working to encourage the level of coordination with our housing, with our homeless services, and with those that are really working to make the difference. So to those of you that, again, are on the ground every day making a difference, know how much we thank you. For those who are working to really put a face on homelessness so that we all can recognize, that we all can share in the responsibility to do more for others. Thank you for your efforts, whether it's what Allison does at Covenant House, whether it's Samuel with the Forget-Me-Not program, whatever it is, whatever small bit that you do, know that you're working to make a difference in the lives of so many here in our state. So I thank you greatly for your efforts in that, and know that we've got a lot to do working together. So thanks for the opportunity to be with you this morning.